Now that I finally covered the two of the three Asia Circuit finale, moving on to not just the strike deck sets but also the any other decks I want to cover from this set. Maybe I'll do Gandiva Masks if I feel like it. But today I need to address something that is actually very major in that set, but I've not actually seen anyone have a major discussion about it. So before I get beaten to the chase, and because I did put in my fair share of games on it, what the hell is the Weed Crystal? Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm Mr. here. Today I am back to cover the Regalis piece. Specifically, this is the Fire Regalis. Now, for those of you who have no idea what this is the most recent Regalis piece as of DivineZ BTO6 generation Dragenesis. And this one is special. This is the Fire Regalis, right? So, for those of you who read like the Cray Cross Epic online web novel, or you are interested in a CCE deck, be it Mami Tegria, Tamayura, this guy, Roroa, or your different fight subscriber, you're more rather than not going to know at least that the Fire Regalis exists. But we're gonna dial it up a notch just a little bit more. I want to talk about specifically what this is for, because when this was advertised on stream, the host of the stream specifically said this was for people who haven't chosen a Regalis piece yet. And it got me thinking, is this card really that good? The answer is no. But I think it's very reflective of the way we build decks now in DivineZ specifically, and I really want to talk about it in terms of the Regalis piece. When we ended standard D, as in overdress, we didn't really have that many Regalis pieces. We had only the cup, Forbidol, I believe we had, I'm pretty sure we had Transfer already. We also had Ladder as the last one to beat Shiranui, but that's all we really had. And in the following year, we got another 4 more. Unite the Sky, Twin Cast, Excalibur, and of course the Fire Regalis. So maybe it's 4 a year, I have no idea. But whatever it is, today I want to talk about all of them after discussing the Fire Regalis, because I think it's really interesting for deck building and what we can talk about, because a lot of people don't actually know how you do or use the Fire Regalis or yellow Regalis pieces. I have a lot of people who approach me, locals, and say, oh, should I buy this? And I'm like, I don't know, do you need it? But it's really strange, and I wanted to really set the scales right today for not just this Regalis piece, which is arguably the most important one in terms of lore significance, but also for upcoming ones and the past ones as well, so that we can always come back and remember this. So this is an explanatory video, surprise, so it'll be part of that playlist too. But okay, I believe I've spent enough time. Let's talk about the Fire Regalis itself. This is a triple rare from DivineZ BTO6, and these are its effects. Its effect changes a little bit depending on how you use it, but I'm just going to read it to you in full, and then afterwards I'll explain to you from there. So the Fire Regalis is a normal order. It's a Regalis piece. Regalis pieces mean you can only use one of them in your deck. And also, you can only play it once, right? So you have to use it once. If you want to play it again, if somehow you loop it back to your hand with, I don't know, Zorga or some crap, you cannot, right? That's just not how any of the Regalis piece works. Not just for this one, but any of the ones I mentioned. So, it has no orderability. I crap you not. If you can wait for the English translation, or if you can read Japanese like me, there is no effects. So the Regalis piece, this one, the Fire Regalis, is special because it says you cannot play this card. Playing the below ability does not count towards your 1 order per turn, as it is not an order ability. It has a second skill, which is an Axe skill, and that's the one in blue. The Axe skill is, from your hand or drop zone, you remove this card as cost, look at the top 5 cards from your deck, choose up to 1 from among them and reveal it. If you don't reveal a card, shuffle your deck and draw a card. If you reveal a card, perform one of the following and shuffle your deck. If the revealed card is a glitter, you put it to your hand. If the revealed card has less than or equal grade to your Vanguard, call it to the rearguard circle. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, what the hell is this supposed to do? Let me explain how the skill works and then how you apply it. Okay, so first of all, you can't actually play this card. So if you're playing an order-based deck, or if you're hoping for a specific order interaction, let's say for example you have a card that needs to check if you play an order this turn, for example, I don't know, let's see, May this for example, yeah, it's just not going to work because, you know, you didn't play an order. It doesn't count as playing an order this turn. However, you can still, in your hand or in your drop zone, just remove this card from the game to trigger its effects. Look at the top 5, choose one from among them. You can either add it to your hand if the revealed card is glitter, or you can call it your Vanguard circle if it's the same grade or less as your Vanguard. If you don't want to reveal a card, that's very simple, just shuffle the deck and draw one. So no matter what, the Fire Regalis is always going to be a net 0, right? If you just remove it from your hand, and then afterwards, you can just either draw one, call one, or add one. That is true. However, it had the skill also from the drop zone. So that means if you use it from the drop zone and remove it, and then you get one additional card back, congratulations, it's technically a +1. Now, the reason why the Fire Regalis is written that way, because in the lore of, you know, Cray Cross Epic, the Fire Regalis is supposed to give you one wish. Any wish you want, once. So the idea in game is that, you know, you can just, you know, look at the top 5 and wish for a card. I cannot believe the Make-A-Wish Foundation uses the weed crystal. But it's interesting, I think. I think it's a very unique interpretation of how this card was going to be. I personally predicted when they were revealing the Fire Regalis' art, I said it was going to have a choose one effect, and then either you draw one or retire one or something like that. But I think this is a lot more interesting and a lot more balanced, because my potential idea may have gone way out of hand. But this one I think is pretty fair. It's like it's either a +1 draw, or it, you know, add one to hand as a glitter, or, you know, just a superior call if it's the same grade or less as your Vanguard. Do know though that because this is not really an order play, you can actually remove this from, you know, you can remove this from your drop zone or your hand if you have a Vanguard that is less than grade 3. So even though, right, even though it says it's a grade 3 order, you can actually use its effects even when you're not grade 3. So when you're grade 3, grade 2, grade 1, grade 0, grade 4, it doesn't matter. You can actually get access to the Fire Regalis, which is perhaps the biggest buff Grateful Gila has received this set. So congratulations to Grateful Gila. Happy New Year. Now, what are the applications of the Fire Regalis? What do you actually do with this? Because now we know how it works. What decks, you know, need this card? Well, first and foremost, I think it's pretty obvious. If you are playing a glitter-based deck, like I said, so Mami Tegria, Tamayura, this guy, Roroa, or Eva, which there are many of you, yes, you can actually use the Fire Regalis in your deck as just a one-off to, you know, get additional +1 or filter one. Especially for Eva, who is, surprised, the most meta relevant. You know, you don't need to play this as your order, you know, because it's Brown Gate. You can just discard it for right. Then you can burn it off, top 5, and another obfuscate, DDD boom, win the game. Very simple. If you're Roroa, even better, because the new interdimensional Roroa, virtually the entire deck is now just a glitter keyword. So basically, you can just top 5 Omni search for anything in your archetype, which is insane. I don't know if I want to do a Roroa video for this set. I think it's really interesting. Let me know if you do one in the comment section below, and I'll invite a guest over. Chaos is probably the easiest one to play the Fire Regalis in, because he's already based on, you know, just one-offs in the deck. So I don't think you can't spare one slot for a Fire Regalis, considering you can Super Komikani and then there's just game from there. Tamayura, her deck is pretty tight, but I would say it's worth considering, but probably maybe not. But you can though, because it's for the keyword. And last but not least, Mami Tegria, she's just too heavy, I'm sorry. You probably don't want another Shieldless card. And speaking of Shieldless cards, now we talk about the application for the rest of us. Besides the glitters, what else can you use this in? Well, some people have speculated that you can play it in Strike deck sets. After all, it's grade 3, you can just use it as Strike fodder, and it's all jolly. However, do you really need a Strike fodder that does nothing? Like, it doesn't give you a draw, it doesn't give you an ultimate strike, it's just a grade 3 guy, right? And it's shieldless. It is a shieldless card, just like most of the offensive Regalis pieces, which does put a damper. It is pretty difficult to warrant playing a one-off garnet, just on the idea that it's going to be in your drop zone, you're going to remove it, and you're going to get a +1. If it's in your hand, it's a net 0, even worse, right? Like, it's just a net 0 filter, but the question is this worth it? And that would depend on the rest of the Regalis pieces, because, you know, you can only play one Regalis piece per deck. So I think now the real question is, how do you choose a Regalis piece? You know, because there's gonna be more, right? Bushiroad, there's no way they're gonna stop. But it is pretty interesting to think of that you have little one-off generics that you can just throw on your decks. Yes, competitively they may be a nightmare to afford because haha generics. But I think for some decks and some of the Regalis pieces personally, I think they're really interesting and it's worth to look into. So let's ask about how do you choose a Regalis piece. Firstly, I want to quickly just break the Regalis piece into 3 different categories. There are Regalis pieces that are very specific. Like for example, the cup, Forbidol, and I guess to an extent, okay, these two are the most specific, right? These two are the most specific, I'll cover them later. You have defensive Regalis pieces like Unite the Sky, Twin Cars, Transfer, and then you have the slightly more, technically Ladder is also specific. And then you have the slightly more general ones, which would be, you know, Fire Regalis, and of course, Excalibur. These are just the 3 categories that I would personally break them down in right now, but you can feel free if you have thought of another category, or if there is another category in the future, let me know. I'd love to talk about it in the future, or maybe, you know, I just don't. Now, that the way you view Regalis pieces is based on your deck's demands, which strangely most people have actually never heard of before. So let me talk about it real quick. If your deck requires defense, right? If you require something to help you block out, if you find that your deck is just way too bricky and you don't really have a way to help yourself survive, there are 3 ways you can do so. Currently, you have Transfer. Transfer for 1 Soul Blast, it is a 25k shield and a over trigger repellent, right? Because if your opponent pulls an over trigger, the unit that attacks with 100 million power is going to get -1 crit. So even if he hits the win con known as Elder Breath, it's not going to be as devastating. Secondly, we also have Twin Cars. Twin Cars is a quick 10k shield from your hand as a Blitz Order, and then if you remove it from Drop Zone later on, you also can get another shield based on the grades of your Vanguard. So not most of the time it's grade 3, right? So it's 15k shield. So this helps you ward off 2 small attacks. This will help you ward off 1 big attack, and also kind of act as a over trigger protection in case your locals has a lot of cheaters. Last but not least, and the newly released one for English, is Unite the Sky. Unite the Sky is technically a pseudo gun cycler because for 1 counter blast or 3 energy blast, you can draw 1 card when discarded for right? Or its Blitz Order skill. It's you know, Regalis Piece skill, is that you can use it as a Blitz Order from your hand, CB1 or EB3 again, draw 1 card, choose one of your units being attacked, and it gains 15,000 power. Then you can remove a grade 3 with the same name as your Vanguard from the drop zone. Sorry, you can remove any card with the same name as your Vanguard from the drop zone, and if you do, you get 25,000 power instead of 15,000. So I think Unite the Sky is strangely one of the most interesting Regalis pieces in my opinion, but it's one of the harder ones to use because it's just another gun cycler. I know I talked about Unite the Sky in my Shojo Doji video, links in the description for that one, but Unite the Sky, the whole point of it is that because it's like a one-off gun cycler, it's really good for decks that already have Vanguards that always use 3 energy. So in terms of the energy curve, right, so I can't believe I have to do another energy explain. So let's say right here, if I go second, I have 9 energy, or if I go first, I have 6 energy. My Vanguards will always take 3 energy, right? Or if I'm going second, my Vanguards will always take 3 energy, right? I have a whopping 6 energy that I just don't use for the rest of the game, but every turn when I get 3 energy, I can just feed it to my Vanguard's effect, just like Shojo Doji. Now, with cards like, you know, Unite the Sky, you can use it once and just use the energy. Or if you went first, you can actually just use it for your Vanguard skill all the time. Use this once, it drops to 0, and now you can more consistently use your 3 energy without actually wasting your time, which I think is pretty cool. But again, this is pretty situational because, first of all, energy is a brand new mechanic, so you kind of have to use this only in the newer decks, which turns some people off. This, while Twin Cast is definitely the easiest shield Regalis piece, again, the question is, do you need to spare a slot for defense? Same with, you know, Transfer. But Transfer, because it uses Soul Blast, I'll say it's a bit more friendly. So as long as your deck doesn't really need a soul use, you can actually consider him. I actually played this before on Vermilion, before, you know, the Blood, and I think it was pretty interesting. Now for the next section of Regalis pieces, I would say is the more general use ones. Our 2 general use ones for now, I would say, is going to be these 2. It is going to be the Fire Regalis as well as Excalibur. Well, that's kind of a lie, technically. Ladder can kind of float in and out of this category, and technically so can Excalibur. We've talked about Fire Regalis already, so just scroll backwards if you need more help on that. Excalibur is a one-use Pot of Greed, so you can use this as a spell and draw 2, which, what does that do? What does it do? I'm not sure. The second skill is, if you want, you can move it to your soul and counter charge 1. So technically speaking, it's Tearful Malice, just costless, which is pretty nice. It is a -1, but it's technically a soul charge 1 and technically a counter charge 1, which some decks will actually kill to use, Excalibur, because counter charge is very rare in their decks. In that case, technically, it is also a more specific Regalis piece, but counter charge is kind of a universal mechanic in the year of our Lord 2024, so I won't really worry about that. For example, Varga Dragenesis absolutely needs to play this card, because they burn out Counterblast so quickly. Last but not least, we have Ladder. Ladder, of which I've already talked about before in my Shiranui video, the same way I talked about Excalibur in my Varga video, so I'm just going to link all of them in the descriptions below in case you need to catch up. Ladder, for those you don't know, when you play this card, you draw 1 card, put this card in your soul, and then your Vanguard gets a passive 5000 power until the end of the turn, and the second skill is until the end of your opponent's turn, none of your Regards can be moved out of their Regard circles by your opponent's effects. So they can't be retired, they can't be bound, they can't, anything, they're just unaffected, which is pretty nice. So it is a pretty good resist protection thing to really look after your boards, especially if you're worried about the control meta, but that's really about it. Like, if you're just not playing in the control meta, this thing just does nothing. Like, you can play Ladder in the face of Rezael, he'll just laugh at you, but it is nice to own. There's a reason why this was the first Regalis piece reprinted so quickly, but there are ways around it even. I mean, Vermilion can just not play, can just not play Thunderbolt. Hell, Shiranui can just call Esper Idea. It's not a big deal, but it helps if you're worried about control. Last but not least, our more specific Regalis pieces, and these are the ones that I would say are more locked based on the decks you would play. First of all is the Cup, and secondly is Forbidal Surrogate. Forbidal Surrogate, the Bastion plushie, I have talked about this before in my previous Bastion video. Please, I will link that as well in the links in the description below. Thank you so much for suggesting Bastion. I finally got off my ass to do that video. Now, for those of you who don't know what the Bastion plushie does, or Forbidal Surrogate, you play this card, search your deck, or drop for 1 grade 3 and 1 grade 4, or just 2 grade 4s, or just 2 grade 3s. It's completely up to you. Your grade 3s are called the Regard Circle, your grade 4s are added to hand. So it's technically a +1, technically in terms of raw value, but it technically also allows you to filter your deck, or draw for 2 cards, right? 1 grade 3, 1 grade 4, or 2 grade 3s, or 2 grade 4s. The grade 3s being called to the board enable you to immediately use their place effects, which are pretty nice, and your grade 4s added to hand means you can ensure your bullshit, like, Dragil Ignis. You guys like Dragil Ignis, right? So, in that case though, Forbidal Surrogate is very specific because it's only used for either grade 3 heavy decks like Bastion or Felty Rosa, or grade 4 decks like Black. And everyone else just can't use Forbidal Surrogate. So because of that, you won't always pick this up if your deck doesn't use it, but if your deck does play around the certain mechanics I just mentioned, you absolutely need to buy it. Similarly is the Cup. Now, the Cup is special because, technically speaking, he is a generic, right? Everyone needs Persona, right? That's what everyone told me back in 2022. Absolute lie, because not everyone has space to spare for just another copy of the Persona, right? Especially right now. You only play this card if your deck actually needs Persona rights to, stay alive. What do I mean by that? Hexorb Sorceress, Cram Grace, Fav New, Blondazzle. These are decks that live and die by Persona Right. If your deck needs you to Persona Right every turn, you absolutely need to play this card. But everyone else? I don't think so. And that is a discussion on all the Regalis pieces overall. Now, I wanted to talk about it in terms of categories so that I could really kind of wrap it up in the discussion segment for the conclusions. Is it worth it or not? I think for all the Regalis pieces as a whole, they all offer you very interesting options for what you can do for deck building, but you wouldn't need to actually play a Regalis piece in every deck. There are some decks that are just insanely strong by themselves that just don't need this one-off generic order, and you shouldn't feel compelled to force fit a Regalis piece inside. I don't know why some people do. You don't. You only use this if your ratios are offering you a 1 to 2 off slot that you can fill off with tech pieces and you go, hey, I want to consider that. As for the Fire Regalis itself, very honestly, I'm not sure how good it is. Even the glitter decks themselves, out of the 5 of them, I don't even see at least 3 of them playing this consistently for competitive use. However, for the rest of us non-glitter people, I think it's certainly a card to keep in watch because, you know, it is still a top 5 call, which is pretty strong in a standard format. But you don't need to feel compelled to go out of your way to buy this thing immediately. Neither should you feel compelled to try and force fit this in every deck you own. There are times where the Fire Regalis is just a straight up brick. There are times where the Fire Regalis doesn't even give you what you want and just blanks you with one draw. Hell, there are times it doesn't even give you a +1 because you used it from your hand and drew it at the wrong time. Regardless of how you see it though, the Fire Regalis is the hard work of Roa and his friends for the past 3 years. And because Generation Dragenesis is kind of the goodbye set to Cray Cross Epic, it is nice to finally get this card after reading about it for so many years. I mean, for those of you especially who read Cray Cross Epic, this must feel surreal to finally own in your hands. The question is, who will you give the Fire Regalis to? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you all next time. Take care.